Alrighty, welcome to Thrones and Scones. It's your weekday morning podcast where we talk Game of Thrones over breakfast. Tony, Hans, and Jeremy in with you here. Today we are hitting Season 1, Episode 8, The Pointy End, and I actually don't even know. Jeremy, what do you got for the scone today?
Oh, we'll be doing mini blueberry from this lovely grocery store here in Beaver Creek. Fresh time. Yeah. It was pretty satisfaction because then you can eat multiple scones and feel like
Jeremy, Jeremy, you're so out of line here. We are not in scone territory right now.
So confusing.
Right. You need to slow your roll, buddy.
Yeah, this is throner time right now.
Let me have my moment, you dirty sconer bastard.
So good. So good.
So for the Thrones here, of course, this episode's The Pointy End, and just for succinctity's sake, is that the word that I want? Just so we cover all of our bases. Yeah, I could just say phrases instead of stupid words that don't exist. Here's the wiki description. In the aftermath of Ned's capture, Syrio and Arya face off against Lannister guards, while Cersei manipulates Sansa to her own ends. Ooh. Robb rallies his father's northern allies against Tywin Lannister and heads south to war. Tyrion forms an uneasy alliance with the Hill tribes and reunites with his father. Ooh. Jon lashes out at Thorne and battles a mysterious attacker from beyond the wall. Dany is forced to reconcile her desire to conquer Westeros with Drogo's savagery after the Dothraki raid a peaceful village. That was a long one. Lots happened in Season 1, Episode 8, and I know it's a little bit overshadowed by all the BS that's about to happen in the coming episodes, but what did you guys think of the pointy end?
I liked it. It was good. I like how it starts off pretty much right after Episode 7. We get in with the Lannister guards pretty much sacking the city, just slaughtering people, and it's just good because I feel like so many episodes have ended on the cliffhanger but then don't start in a relevant spot. They just completely sidetrack and go to something else, and I like that it went, now that I'm binging, I like that it went from there was some continuity from the end of Episode 7 to Episode 8, so I thought that was good. A lot of good points that I really liked, but overall, good episode. What did you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, I actually completely agree. This one, you can feel it pumping up, right? You feel like it getting going. We've kind of hit the pinnacle on the roller coaster, and now we're coming down, and it moves at a better pace for me compared to some of the prior episodes. To be honest, I think now we're starting to see a little bit more with Daenerys and kind of the preparing for war as they're marching across, the sacking of the villages. I think that's where I find a lot of really interesting points in the future for Daenerys' character actually starting to develop now. So she's kind of been off to the side on the back burner, and now that's coming. So I'm looking forward to talking about that.
I think they're setting up a lot with Dany, but I'd make a counterpoint real quick. I think this episode was really, as far as the ESO side of things, focused on Drogo more than Dany.
Yes, yeah, no, that's I agree with you completely, but I think
I agree with you completely, but go fuck yourself.
No,
but I don't.
But take it, okay? Because you're wrong. No, I mean, Drogo's role in this series really is about kind of showing Dany who she's going to be, and I think we start to see that now. She gets put in some kind of moral kind of dilemmas, and now she's gonna figure out, what kind of woman, what kind of queen she wants to be, and I think we see that now, and that's why I thought it was really cool.
It's this thing that we've been hearing about since Episode 1, where Khal Drogo is this crazy warrior. It's like, oh, look how long his braid is. It's because he's never cut it, because he's never lost. But we haven't seen, we've seen him being big and brutish and leading his men. And last episode, we saw him making these proclamations, being this badass, screaming into the fire. A little weird, but kind of cool. And then this is the first fight that we get with Khal Drogo, and he does it without weapons. And it's just like, he even takes him out at halfway through the fight, drops his daggers, and then the best moment ever where the guy's like, oh, you'll have to kill me first. He's like, I already have, and slits his throat. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Except knowing what happens moving forward, the beginning of that fight, you're just like, oh, come on, dude. Don't do this. Stop letting the blade just go further into your chest.
Where he peck thrusts it. He's like, yeah, this feels nice.
Yeah.
Take it. Rub that rust right into there. That feels good.
It
was good.
Speaking of brutal, as Hans said, we opened up the episode with them just brutalizing every Stark and every Stark like bannerman that's in existence in the city. Does this make sense? Like, obviously I get all the guards, but when they go for the Septa particularly, they make a point to kill her and everything. If they're going for this whole Tywin Lannister wipe your family out thing, don't you think that they would have done the girls as well? Like, the fact that they leave the daughters alive, or Sansa because she's the only one they have, but then kill the Septa seem at odds with me.
Yeah, so I'd also argue that it's kind of a dichotomy. They're wiping them out, but then they're saying, oh, you have a choice, kneel to the king, but then you're murdering everyone. So I found that very odd. Yeah, it's like, so why? Supposedly the only traitor, right, is Ned. Like, why are you systematically removing all of them? I mean, that's literally saying one thing and obviously just showing their hand is what they're doing. They're making war before it's even declared, which we know is coming anyway.
And then trying to, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with the oddity of that, because they are killing all the Starks, and obviously they want, Cersei is kind of driving all this at this point. Like, I feel like Joffrey really hasn't taken any sort of command to this point yet. And Cersei's really behind the scenes working all of this, and she's obviously having all these people killed. And then, but why would she want her son to marry a Stark? There's really no benefit, right? Because if she wants to wipe out the entire Stark name, then why have her son marry this Stark girl, and why keep her alive? Because I'm sure there are other royalty women or princesses or something that she could just have Joffrey married that would be less of an issue. So it doesn't make any sense to me, because it's really, even we learn, I believe, in not this episode but the next episode possibly, that Joffrey says it's not like Joffrey wants to keep her alive so he can marry her. Cersei is the one telling Joffrey that he has to marry her. True. So I don't get it.
I will say, I think I know the reason, but the show does not explain it at this point, so I think it is a fault we're relying currently. And I think they do explain it later, especially when the Bolton storyline really comes to fruition, is that the Northerners are very, very stubborn, and the Starks have led them for essentially the entire history of the kingdom. And as long as there are... the key to holding the North is having a Stark. So if you can have that name attached to you, it's the same reason why we get the forced marriage with Ramsay Bolton later, is because it becomes this name thing that you need to have behind you if you want to hold the North.
That's a good point. And I suppose, after saying all that, it's not like they can easily get to Robb, which is probably the one they're most worried about at this point. So they need to keep somebody alive to keep Robb at bay, is my guess, in Cersei's mind.
Good call.
But it just still seems weird. They could have not had Joffrey marry her, and still, I don't think that, to your point, I think that's a good point, but it's not like killing all the slaying all the Starks and keeping one alive is going to keep the North at bay. That's probably going to piss them off more than anything. So I don't know.
Yeah. So with killing all of the Starks, this brings us to, I think, one of the first conspiracy theories that stems from the show. Do you guys think that Syrio Forel is dead?
Yes.
I don't, because why wouldn't they show it? There's so much gore, there's so much stuff. Why would they not show the death, right?
Right. Now we know he didn't win the fight because Meryn Trant is a character later on. But yes, so do you guys know the conspiracy theory with this?
I don't.
No.
Jeremy?
No.
So the conspiracy theory is that Syrio was captured and put into the black cells in the dungeon where Ned ends up, and then is taken by Yoren, if it's his name, when he comes to search for the Night's Watch recruits. And the conspiracy theory is that Syrio Forel is Jaqen H'ghar.
Interesting. I don't even know who is.
That's a stretch.
Jaqen's the guy who trains Arya, the faceless man.
Oh, that is interesting.
It makes sense, right? I mean, he's already kind of training her to kind of follow that path already, with all the techniques, with the whisper quiet and all, chasing a cat and all those things. So you already see that kind of foundation being built. That's totally believable.
The only thing that really holds it for me is after Arya eventually goes to Braavos and becomes this, faceless man and joins their ranks for a period of time. They reveal a whole hell of a lot. They reveal that Jaqen isn't Jaqen, that nobody is who they think they are, that everyone is no one. Why would it not be revealed to her and to us that he was Sirio? What's the point in keeping that a secret?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but it's fun. It's certainly fun to speculate. Let's close in the Stark things here. After everyone's dead, talking about keeping them at bay. Did you guys watch Making a Murderer? At least the first season?
No, I didn't.
No, I never watched it.
Okay, maybe you have watched some similar things. There's all this talk in Making a Murderer with this guy, Brendan Dassey, who's the main guy's nephew, I think. And they show his confession, and it's such this like forced confession thing that makes you uncomfortable. It's like, oh, this is a kid, and the police are talking him into this thing, are making him say these things, and he just, he doesn't know any better. He's like, oh, so this is what happened. Yeah. And it's painful to watch. That's the vibe I get from the Sansa scene where they're making her write the letter, where they're just like, oh, you disappoint me so much. She's like, no, I want to be good. Oh, well, then you would do. And, oh, it's so cringy, but it's so good.
Yeah, that scene, Sansa really shows she's just a child, and she just, like, we talked about this in some of the other episodes, she just kind of is in this, like, fawning over anyone who pays attention to her. She doesn't feel loved by her father, she doesn't feel loved by Joffrey, and then she just wants someone to want her, and I feel like Cersei just picks her alive for that, and is so, like, well articulating what she needs her to put in there that it's going to lead to more detriment to her, and she's just so naive she doesn't get it, which I want to believe that she's from just the future, that she maybe did know what was doing and she was just trying to survive.
Could be. I mean, you can definitely tell she doesn't have much of a choice at this point.
Right. And that's what this episode is, right? I mean, a lot of hard choices. Yeah, so what did you guys think about the wall? I mean, now we're starting to get a little more there. We come back now, and they find the two comrades to Benjen, and they bring them back. They talk about what are they, what should we do with them. We see a lot more of the show. Did you feel like it was kind of like a setup so we can see Jon's character develop a little bit more, or do you feel like this was one of those things where like the actual plan for Jon realizing what he needs to do to survive?
I think both of those things for sure. I love that this is a good turning point for Jon. It's not the ultimate one, but it really kind of starts to set up the big turn for him into what he's about. It does present one of my least favorite bit about the episode, and it's that I don't quite understand, and going forward, I'm still unsure as to what the Whites' capabilities are. They're not zombies. They're not brainless. They're not afterbrains. They've got like this either hive mind. They're obviously controlled by the White Walkers, but this one hides behind a door for Jon to come into the room, then closes that drawer for dramatic effect, and then walks very intently up. And then we know that swords don't kill them, but then he acts like the sword kills him. And it's just, it seems very played up for the drama. Again, we don't know all this yet, so it's kind of hindsight is 2020 that's killing it. But it just seemed more for the effect than for any actual setup of what they can and can't do.
So I'm a little confused too, and maybe it's explained more in the books, and it could be explained more in the show. To be honest, I don't remember. As I'm rewatching these episodes, I'm realizing how much I didn't remember about the show. So is there different types of White Walkers? Because I understand there's the leader guy, who's obviously very different. But then why is the whole like hive of White Walkers so far away from the wall? But there's still these White Walkers that are basically like right by the wall.
So are you referring to the things that we're seeing in this episode?
Yeah.
So those are Whites, not White Walkers.
Those are Whites,
okay. So what's the difference?
The White Walkers are these beings that in the books we don't know how they come to be. In the show later on they say that the Night King makes them out of babies who are given to him, etc., etc. But the White Walkers raise corpses, and those are the things that we're seeing.
Those are so. These corpses being raised, can they raise them from anywhere? I don't get how they're so close to the wall, yet the White Walkers themselves seem to be very far away from the wall because it takes them for frickin' ever to get there.
So it's another thing, and in season 2 we really start to get with the timelines are very sketchy on this. But in the first episode, we see people from the Night Watch dealing with a White Walker.
Okay.
So we know that there's at least one around, but yeah, I don't really understand where all of them are and what the story is trying to tell us. I think it's a big issue.
Yeah, it's kind of it just doesn't make much sense to me, timeline-wise, mostly.
Yeah. What were some more good and bad things from the episode, guys? Your favorite, your least favorite?
I'll start with Drogo and the removal. What I like to refer as the tracheotomy.
It was good.
Tracheectomy, sorry, is where the systematic. I mean, I love that the guy's dead, but he has to make sure it's just like, oh, I'm gonna take this small piece of your trach and just put it on this pile of bodies. Yeah. That was probably
tongue comes with it too.
Yeah. And actually, I love that he's a dual knife. He's such a badass that he has essentially like butter knives for him for his weapon, where everyone else is carrying around these like massive things. His size is no question, right? I mean, we just know that he's Horse King.
He's not compensating.
He's not compensating at all. That would probably be my favorite part. I didn't really have a whole lot of bad in this episode. This is really builds into something that's like, it's really enjoyable for me. I maybe say maybe Catelyn talking to Lysa, that whole like family thing. We know she's a cunt. Like it just seems to just kind of be a little long drawn for me. Although I love where he sends her child away as like, go take a nap and I'll feed you later. And I'm like, that's just wrong. Let's just stop that. we don't need to continue the storyline.
It's a great debate over what the appropriate age is to end breastfeeding. I think that the rule should be, if your kid can go, I'm hungry, and start unlacing your shirt.
Yeah, how old is he in this? It's like he looks like 11 or 12.
I think he's 5 or 6, but I'm also pulling that number out of my ass.
Yeah, Hans, what did you think?
Yeah, I think my best is similar. Khal Drogo's just a baller, right? It's so sweet to see that 1v1 fight. He just really didn't get enough time on the show.
I totally agree.
He's so good. Jason Momoa just killed this character. And that's definitely my best. My worst, I have a couple kind of in mind, and my worst are kind of straddling the line with scenes that are not necessarily poorly written or bad, but just kind of bad because I know how they play out. And I'm just like, the decisions that were made, I don't like in the show. And for better or for worse, like I said, it's not necessarily bad writing or bad acting or anything. But when I can't remember his name, but Rob is at dinner with all the northern lords and men and stuff. And who's the main other lord that is conflicting with Rob?
Great John Umber.
Great John Umber. And he's standing up to Rob and he's arguing and all this stuff. And then the wolf comes across the table and bites his fingers off. And then, cause he draws his sword, right? And Rob says, oh, he was just drawing his sword to cut my meat. And then the guy goes, well, your meat is bloody tough or whatever. Like, what a ridiculous scene. After he just lost his fingers, not even phased by losing his fingers. Doesn't even go to clean them up or anything.
No, yeah, he's just like, oh, respect, man. It's the most. I love to think that I would be, if I was in Westeros, I'd be Jon Snow. Have that sense of honor, that sense of duty, conflicting with what I need to do. No, if I was in Westeros, I would 100% be Bran Stark in that scene where he's just looking around like, what the actual fuck is happening right now? Do I be concerned? Should I leave? Oh shit, my legs don't work.
Yeah, Brian has some crazy eyes in this episode. It's great.
It's very good. But that is, I agree. It's a very quick turn, but it's my favorite moment of the episode. Those few kind of scenes, because we've known Rob since episode 1. Here's where we get the real introduction to who he is and what he's about, and I love that.
Yeah.
Again, another character we don't get as much time with as maybe we would like, but for the time being, I think he's my golden boy.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big Rob fan. I also was a scene that was just kind of cringeworthy, and again, it just goes to make you hate the Lannisters more, right? Is when they fire Lord Barristan, or when they cancel him of his duties, basically.
That was a really good scene.
Yeah, and I love it when he's just like, even now I could cut through the 5 of you like cutting a cake or whatever. This is just badass, but
yeah, but it's compared to our the prior episode, where he kind of just took it, right? It's like, oh, all right, I guess we have a new king, and yet you see his honor now. It just creates this this character flaw for me that is like, wait, why now do you have that honor where let's argue a few hours before you were just like, oh yeah, okay, cool, let's let chaos reign and new king, and I'll stand here and that's cool, even though I have king's words, right? Said it out loud, you know your orders, and yet here you don't do it, but then you have this sense of pride that you're not going to retire.
I think it's less of that, it's more of the thing. I think Barristan Selmy is a good interpretation of the golden rule, where it's like, he is willing to do a bunch of shit because he took this vow, but you better be taking that vow just as seriously as he is, and the second you dismiss him from what's supposed to be a lifelong appointment, that sense of duty is gone to you.
Yeah.
I love this moment, and it takes a while for it to pay off with him going over and eventually meeting up with Dany, but it's very, very cool. A character who we've seen being talked about as a badass. This is the first moment we get of him actually being more than just standing around and
just a yes man,
being cinematic. Yeah, it's quite cool. Any more good and bad before we hit the jugglies?
Well, I think some notes to be mentioned that'll have some pretty big implications moving forward is Daenerys saves some women.
Yeah.
From the Dothraki horde, basically. And one of them is what they call a witch, which I kind of cringed a bit at that moment, but some implications.
They just can't beat that bad rap. They just can't beat it,
means
right?
a lot.
Everyone's just putting the witches down.
And then I guess quick, to hopefully not be jumping the gun too much, Tony, but to add on to to add some jugglies.
Here we go.
Hodor makes Hodor
He's got giant splun in him.
Hodor steals a scene here. So
I will be totally honest here. I rewinded this scene because it's Bran and Asha in the Godswood, and then Hodor comes after bathing, we assume, and he's just wearing a towel around his neck with this massive schlong swinging around, and Asha makes like, oh, he got giant blood in him, and I watch the scene, and then I rewind it, and there's a couple things going through my head. The first thing is, who's manscaping Hodor? I'd like to know. He's not doing it himself. He can't say more than Hodor. I don't trust him with a razor down by his genitals. So someone's got to be doing it.
So what are you saying here?
What do you mean?
How cleanly was he manscaped?
I mean, enough to be like, okay, there's some work that's done to this. Like,
yeah.
Because it was, it was not scraggly. It was not unimpressive. But he didn't have a lot of body hair at all, so maybe that's the implication there.
Yeah.
I'm reading way too much into his pubes, but still.
No, I think that's a great point, and I really was only asking to hear what you would say.
Of course.
Because I also rewound the scene. Jesus. Only because I'm watching with Jenna, and Jenna goes, why didn't that guy have any pubes? I was like, do they? And she said a similar thing. She goes, do they manscape in this? Like what? Like how are they doing that?
It's low T. It's low T. Everyone knows that.
Yeah. So then So then in my notes, because I wasn't necessarily going to rewind it at the time, and then we got talking, and then I was arguing that there was no way that was possible. But in my notes, I just have Hodor, naked, flaccid, large, pasty, and then pubes ? I wanted to be
adjective that's
I wanted to be thorough. So then
pubes ?
So then I rewound, and there are pubes, gray pubes for that matter. But
okay.
Interesting.
Did you zoom in?
No, I didn't have that capability, but
that'll be on Instagram later, in case you're wondering.
I just wanted to be. I wanted to be thorough for the show, obviously.
We appreciate your commitment to the bit. The other thing I was wondering, I've heard Christian Nairn, I think is the actor's name, talk about filming the scene before, and that it is prosthetic. But did they actually film it in front of Isaac? Do you think? Like, he's a child at this point. What's the legality with that? I don't know.
I'm not sure, because I don't think they ever include all of... I think it's the shots never include all of them, I don't think. So I probably not. It was probably just...
I don't think so either.
No.
And you could fake it even if it did. They're at a distance where a green screen wouldn't be that troublesome.
No. But...
Well, Hans, I think you're wrapping up our discussion today.
Yeah, so I have a question for you guys. Given that this is kind of where that last episode and into this episode, we see a big shift of things as far as the Game of Thrones goes, right? So we have, we had a point last episode where we talked about, Renly wanting the throne. Daenerys obviously is coming back for it. Khal Drogo tells Daenerys he's going to get it for her. Ned Stark was going to be, on the throne. Obviously, Joffrey is the one who ended up there. Stannis has been mentioned. So we have this is really where all of this starts building up. At this point, before Ned dies, before we really get any deaths in a lot of this, if you could have picked anyone to take the throne right now, who would it be? Any of the Lannisters, Renly, Daenerys, Khal Drogo, Hodor?
As they stand in episode 8, or
episode 8.
What comes next?
Nope, episode 8.
Okay.
Are you saying any of the Lannisters, or just like
anybody, anyone you want to take the throne?
Oh my God, that's tough. I would say Ned, only because I don't think we're at the point where Tyrion would not be at the mercy of his father. So,
right.
Not that I necessarily want to see Tyrion on the throne, but. You could make that argument. I don't think Dany's in a position there yet. And while I love Khal Drogo, the the prospect of him ruling over everybody is terrifying. But I don't know. Do you guys have other thoughts?
Yeah. What about Catelyn?
What about her? Get out of here.
No, I mean I actually think she could pull it off. She's loyal. She loves her family. Yeah, she jumps to large conclusions and sets upon her family a war that will murder her husband. But no big deal. No big deal. Such is life.
I mean, we've seen a couple scenes so far of the king holding court where people come and say, "Oh, this is happening. This is so wrong." And Catelyn Stark could get to the bottom of that. World's greatest detective is established.
She can solve murders. Just for argument's sake, I think if you're looking at the Stark family, Ned has already shown that he can't make those hard decisions. And I'd say Catelyn has a little more of that, you know what? I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to put the first foot forward. I mean, she takes Tyrion, she goes to the sister, she wants revenge, but she does it at least in an honorable way, right? I mean, she could have just had him murdered.
She could have.
Right? So she does have honor. She does show that she follows law. I'd say that. I want to see Tyrion. Just because he's enjoyable right now. But, yeah.
You know what? For the Catelyn thing, I totally agree with you, except I don't. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That feels good.
Hans, who would you put on the Iron Throne?
I think you have to put Ned Stark up there. I wanted, when I thought of this question, I wanted to think of something, very profound and someone unexpected that would everyone would be like, oh yeah, that would be a great idea. But everyone's just a piece of shit in this show, really, when you get down to it. And no one is at that, like, Dany hasn't matured enough yet to even be a consideration for me. Like, she hasn't at all. And obviously all of the Lannisters have problems. To be honest, my front runner, which is kind of surprising, was actually going to be, I hate to say it because I think it would be terrible, but from a personal standpoint, like Tywin at least Lannister. he's relatively responsible. He's been around the block, but the problem with that is then who does the throne go to afterwards? And then it's just, and he's already, he has the most money, so like, as far as, well, what everyone thinks and everything. Right. Everyone's in his pocket. Everyone's in his pocket anyway. So then why not just have him rule? Because it's not going to make much difference. But then it goes down to his just shit kids. So
yeah, it's a good thought. Well, all right. You've held your tongue or filled them with pastries, Jeremy. Your time is here, you sconer bastard. How did you fare with your mini blueberry scones?
Yeah, let's talk about the deliciousness of scones. This blueberry scone is both small, so it's edible.
I'm sorry, we're getting the notion right now, the notice that we're out of time. Unfortunately, we're so sorry about this. If you guys want to hit up our social media, you can find us at Thrones and Scones. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we don't don't know what to do there, but you can find us anyway. Keep up with us at thronesandscones.com and wherever you want to listen in to podcasts. And we will catch you tomorrow for Season 1, Episode 9. You down with GOT?
Yeah, you know me.
Like to add in here at the end.
A 5-minute conversation on pubes.
It was good.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
solid.
the
Yeah.
pubes.
So I think
let's go back to that.
I want to go back to the pubes because I was holding my tongue a bit, but I think that's why they look so goofy is because it's prosthetic, because the pubes didn't look right.
But why,
They look
why
like-
make that prosthetic? That's what I don't understand.
No, I think
why
the
does that have
pubes
to be
were what they were using to hold the prosthetic on. They have some sort of like adhesive or something, and they've got to be fake. It didn't they didn't look right.
Yeah, but we saw Rob's. Why can't
It
we
looked
see
like it was
his?
almost
Theon's.
like it looked like it was almost like CGI'd
Theon's,
or something.
yeah.
It was strange.
Yeah. So hold on, Jeremy. Going back to that for a second. I mean, the joke is obviously that he must have Giant's blood in him. I don't know what you're packing downstairs, but it had to be prosthetic because it was huge.
Wait. You guys don't have big cocks. No one. Let me get mine.
And say, oh my god.
Do the contrary, my friend.
Oh no, we're.
I mean, I can relate to horsemen.
I'm much more like that assassin. Very ball forward, very very dirty. Who was also incredibly well groomed. I think that this is just a glaring character flaw in this whole show.